Next up, global unity. Again, we've got this community of 800 incredible change makers, and we've got a strategy, a theory of change for how would we actually create a better world. We talked at our investor day yesterday about this idea of idealized design. Start with, the world you want and work to get there. And early in the development of global unity, we came across some content from the founder of XPRIZE. And XPRIZE is, for me, it's done some really interesting things. But for me, I think a subtle power of it is, and Andrew will speak for this, is it's a really surprising financial innovation, which we'll get to hear from Andrew. Andrew Tauhert is the head of impact at XPRIZE, which has holds these incentive competitions, puts up tons of money. The first one was a $10 million contest to create the first civilian spaceflight vehicle. It would have taken $100 million of R&D to create that, but with $10 million, they had teams put more than that in. And so this is a kind of hidden financial innovation that is often not labeled as such, that I'm really excited to have Andrew here to share. So let's make him feel welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking a few minutes to hear about XPRIZE. For those that aren't familiar with XPRIZE, I'll give you a little flavor of what we're all about. But really what I'm going to really focus on is some of that financial engineering that occurs behind the scenes to make these prizes come into life. Our mission, for those that don't know, is really inspiring the world and the innovators of the world to drive the breakthroughs that will help create a more abundant future and equitable future for all of us. And we do this through, of course, the incentive competition model. How does that model work? First and foremost, we pick a topic where we feel that through innovation, we can set a target. We call it audacious and achievable. Audacious because it really needs to move the needle in ways that current systems are not, but achievable in terms of scientifically valid to achieve. We don't want to set a target that says 3 years from now, somebody will come up with something that defies the laws of physics. But we do want to set something that's really hard. We don't even want them all achievable because that tells us that we are actually moving the needle there. The second thing is, once we've identified that target, and we don't do it ourselves, we do it through experts that surround us, we then motivate the crowdsourcing of innovation around that target. And we ask people to build some very audacious and difficult things. It's not a paper exercise. It's not just an idea competition. You actually have to build the thing that you say that you can do. But as part of that, we also validate that scientifically. We have a community of experts from around the world that get together to specifically test that particular set of innovations. So we know leaving the prize that we have something that actually works and did what they said that it could do. The last thing as part of the model is building this ecosystem. An ecosystem that we built through the many years we've been around, an ecosystem that gets built around the problems that we focus on. And this is the ecosystem that actually helps us achieve that impact. The impact of prizes part of it does occur during the prize, the majority of it occurs well after the prize is over. And it's that ecosystem that surrounds it, largely an ecosystem of capital that helps to infuse those innovations with the capital that they need to scale and to change the world thereafter. It started, as Elliot said, with the Ansari XPRIZE. The goal of the Ansari XPRIZE was partly innovation, but wasn't totally. It was primarily to change a mindset that only governments can go to space. The mindset up until that point in time was that unless you're a government agency, you're not capable, you don't have the capital, you don't have the innovation, the reliability, et cetera, to go to space. So the winning teams of that prize was said, you can get $10 million if you could build a non-government agency, build a vehicle that takes a human to 100 kilometers, takes them back down to Earth, does it again within a 2-week period with the same vehicle. And as Elliot said, the $10 million that those teams were trying to win, they spent $100 million trying to win it. So not only do we feel like, wow, this is a great vehicle to catalyze capital for that particular problem, but what happened thereafter? The first company that won it had a $6 billion IPO and a multi-trillion-dollar industry built out of that. So in the years that followed, we then went and used this exact same model across a series of challenges in all of these different domains. This is our periodic table of prizes. And each of those colors represents a different domain that we've done our work. So we're 30 years old this year, and we launched our 30th prize just about 6 months ago. And we've done the work across biodiversity and conservation, climate and energy, deep tech, food, water and waste, healthcare, education and society, and what am I missing? Space and exploration. So with that, we then say, well, where's the next set of problems that we want to focus it on? And we, to be honest with you, we pass on most problems. Not because we don't want to address though, but just because the prize vehicle is not the best vehicle to address it. But when we do, this is what we get. We get innovators from around the world who we get to focus on. Those are academics who are sitting there and working on a piece of the puzzle in a university right now. Those are tinkerers and builders who are hacking on something that could be part of the solution. Those are existing companies that are in the market that are building and selling something that could be used to be directed towards this problem. In our history, we've gotten 10,000 teams, over 35,000 innovators. And the interesting thing about all of them is that they don't start as startups, but a high percentage of them end as startups. So you can imagine what they're going to need when that prize is over. As I said before, though, we then decide where do we want to focus this. So this is the kind of the lens through which we say, would the problem that we would focus this on qualify for an XPRIZE? Is it getting enough innovation? So if it's not getting enough innovation today, it might be a candidate. If it's not getting funding today, then it might be a candidate. If progress is being made, but being made too slow for what the world needs, it might be a candidate. Or if it's too risky for conventional means to address it, it might be a candidate. The interesting thing about all of these things is kind of the underlying theme around all these is that it's not getting investment. If it's getting a ton of investment and the world's attention, it probably wouldn't be the right vehicle. But if it isn't getting that attention, then it quite possibly is. That then creates the challenge for us is how do we get these things backed? So a little bit of, so you understand, XPRIZE is a 501c3, we're a nonprofit. Every one of our prizes have to be explicitly funded. The funding comes in the form of the purse money, as well as all the money that needs to be spent to mobilize this force, to test those innovations, to orchestrate the prize. This capital comes from these many different sources. One thing that people don't realize is the prize itself ends up being the convergence point for all of these forms of capital that otherwise wouldn't focus on it. Philanthropy often won't touch these types of problems because they're too far out there or it's too much of a gamble to try to address it. And they need to go back to their board and say, I have to show how each dollar of my philanthropic dollars are being spent. Corporates, and be they the marketing side of a corporate or the CSR side of a corporate, they too have their own agenda, which might be, I want to do what's best for my industry or best for my brand. I might be scared to touch this because in the case of the Ansari XPRIZE, there's many corporates that passed it down because somebody could die while actually running that prize. And so they have an agenda that has to be worked. Governments, first of all of our prizes are open to worldwide innovators and the innovations coming out of them are open to the world. That goes against the use of tax dollars for many governments who say, I'll do this, but only for the benefit of my citizens, or I have to guarantee that it goes off and only involves my innovators. And then the venture world, often the venture world doesn't want to touch this either because if we're picking the topic as a prize, in all likelihood, the venture world is not currently touching it anyways. It's too far out there. It's not going to cultivate for another 5 years or what have you. Now, the challenge here is bringing all these together. But when we're able to bring these together, that's when we create magic, right? When we can get the philanthropy who looks at the problem that we're addressing and saying, I can see how this problem that like coral reef restoration or wildfires or what have you is directly aligned with my mission and this prize could move the needle. When we can get a corporate who's motivated to not just do what's good for their bottom line, but for this particular topic, it's magic. When we get governments to realize that they too can contribute to this for not just their citizens, but everybody else, it's magic. And then the venture community. I'll give you a good example of where we did this, which is our wildfire prize. Our wildfire prize launched about 1.5 years ago. And it's got a few different tracks, but the most basic one is saying that under the premise that every big wildfire started small. So what if we could challenge innovators to give them 1,000 square kilometers to monitor, And within that 1,000 square kilometers, we're going to light off X number of fires. And you have to have a solution that can detect and assess those fires and determine which ones should be suppressed. But you have to do it in 10 minutes. If we could do that for everywhere in the world where we have a hotbed of wildfires, we can address this problem. Well, the venture community wasn't focusing on that. As a matter of fact, creating a business model around how those innovations scales is a specific challenge that prize addresses. Philanthropies would say, well, I just want to put out more wildfires so I can show exactly how my dollars are being spent today towards something that is helping people today. Well, truth be told, the sponsor lineup behind our wildfire prize involves 3 philanthropies, 2 from the US, 1 from Australia, 4 corporates. One of those corporates is a utility company, one is an insurance company who owns property in wildfire vulnerable areas, one is an aerospace company, and the other one's a resort company in Europe. And then involves a few individual philanthropists. And then the US government stepped in with FEMA and the Wildfire Service. Had we not had that unique collection, that prize would not be in existence today. And this happens on all of our prizes. So I think the learning that we found is sometimes we get lucky and we get one very enterprising entrepreneur or one rich government that underwrites an entire thing. But usually the best of our prizes are aligning the interests of all of those parties. And those parties are out there. It's just getting them to the table. The result of the work is that we have launched, or we've garnered $519 million in 30 years of prize capital towards those 30 different problems. And the interesting thing about that capital is that, yes, it brought 35,000 engineers to compete on it, but the more interesting one is that those teams spent $4 billion trying to win $500 million. So we've gotten $4 billion to focus on those specific challenges that we asked them to address. We then, in one of my roles at XPRIZE, I try to calculate what are all the ways in which prizes impact the world that isn't just the amount of money spent to win the purse. And that breaks down into these categories. But these are hugely important to our sponsors, to our backers, and to how the theory of change that will change the world. The first one is innovation, valuing the innovation that gets created on prizes. The multiplier there is the multiplier against the prize purse we're able to achieve. So 3 times that 500 million has been generated in value towards innovation. 3 times towards awareness building. Awareness building is hugely important in this space because if we get a bunch of innovators to identify the solution to the problem, but the world doesn't know about it, it's not going to go anywhere. Or if policy needs to change to adopt these innovations, it's not going to go anywhere. So we get a 3 times multiplier on that. Validation is also hugely important. The world needs to know that these solutions work. They've been tested in extreme conditions to show that they technically work. And we spend 7 times the amount of that prize purse on that validation. And then the last one is scaling, which is the most important. Scaling happens after the prize is over. How do we create scenarios where investment can pour into these teams? And when we dimension a prize, we dimension that scaling model into it, saying, will these teams go public? Will they get government funding? Will they get advanced market commitments? But whichever it is, we have to have a scaling model for those teams to be able to roll out. And that results in 20 TAWs. Net, we get a 33 times leverage upon our prize purse, which means we've had over 17 billion worth of impact. But I'll leave you with this point, which is this is a highly effective model for a certain type of set of problems. And it's an opportunity to convene different forms of capital around that problem. So if anybody has any suggestions on where else you'd like to focus it, I'd be happy to consider it for the 31st prize that we launched. But at least take those learnings in that model with you with the other good work that you're doing.
Again, one of the wonderful challenges of this event is we have too many amazing people. And when Andrew shared that he would be available, I was so excited for the investors in our event yesterday to be able to hear this because, again, everyone kind of has their capital stack, their different ways of doing good with money. And part of what I really appreciate about Preeti, one of the things she didn't get to share is this incredible model where can kind of save philanthropists money and pay for performance. She's got these incredible mechanisms. XPRIZES are, what's unique for me about XPRIZE is not just that financial innovation side of it or the fact that, You can get $100 million in R&D with 10 million, but it's also by its nature a public engagement tool. And that for me is kind of unique in is a class of its own, because so much of the kind of big picture financial capital market mechanisms are kind of secluded from the everyday person. XPRIZE not only brings the average person in, but brings excitement with it. And so, yeah, just big fan of the organization, of what you've done, what you shared about the impact you've made so far. I appreciate you being here.